Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and drag this whole mental health thing back out of the gutter that it's been sitting in. Now, this week, I do want to talk about how some of my decks fit in the new bracket system that we talked about last week. But before that, I do want to say Magic Fest Chicago was this weekend. I could not afford to swing a trip to Chicago for it, but I do hope that anybody that's out there is having fun, and that's really all I have to say about it. So, I'm going to go through 4 of my decks, and I'm going to show you the bracket they're supposed to be in, and then the bracket that I believe they fit in, because I have some reservations about the bracket system. So first up, we're going to talk about my demon deck, which is run by Be'lakor the Dark Master, which is 3 in Grixis for a 6/5 demon noble. It has flying. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. And then whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So this is clearly a demon typal deck. It's got some big beefy demons in it, and then the real sub theme of the deck is killing off everything and then reanimating stuff. So this, according to the bracket system, falls at a 3, which is the upgraded bracket. The reasons for this is there's no 2-card combos. There's 2 game changer cards. There's no mass land denial. There's no extra turn cards. And then it does go into the tutors that it runs. So the 2 game changers in the deck are Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. That's it. Now, the other tutors that it has, that it lists there, is Diabolic Intent, the Buried Alive, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded, Runescarred Demon, Varragoth Bloodsky Sire, Burning Rune Demon, and Entomb. So, yeah, it does have a lot of tutors, considering it is a heavily black-based deck with blue and red playing support colors. So, according to Moxfield, this is a bracket 3 deck. The way I play it, it definitely feels like it would fit into the 3 bracket. I don't think it pushes into a 4. Maybe that'll change at some point in the future, but for now, it just seems like a good deck to sit and hang with people. Yeah. So, I guess I just want to go over some of the demons, I guess, that are in the deck. So, there is a small portion of stuff that came from Warhammer 40k, which gave us things like the Blood Crusher of Khorne, which is 3 in red for a 3/3 Demon Knight with Trample. Other creatures you control have Trample. So what that did was it gave us a lot of more lower cost demons, because I feel like the average cost for most of the other demons in this deck is like between 6 and 7. Like we talked about Razaketh, which is 5 blue, 5 black, for an 8/8 demon with flying trample, pay 2 life, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Villis, Broker of Blood, is 5 black, black, black for an 8/8 demon with flying, and for a black, pay 2 life, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn, and whenever you lose life, you draw that many cards. Then there's the slew of Rakdos. And by that I mean I have Rakdos, Lord of Riots, which is black, black, red, red, 6/6 demon. Can't cast a spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. Flying trample. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each life your opponents have lost this turn. So I have tried to power him out just as a way to lower the cost of everything else. Next up we have Rakdos, Patron of Chaos, which is 4 black, red for a 6/6 demon with flying and trample. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. And then there's Rakdos the Showstopper, which is 4, a black and a red, for a 6/6 demon with flying and trample. When it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. So yeah, it's just some big beefy demons, and then as far as sorceries go, we've got reanimation stuff with, like, Command the Dreadhorde, which is 4 black, black for sorcery. Choose any number of target creature and or planeswalker cards in graveyards. Command the Dreadhorde deals damage to me equal to the total for mana cost of those cards. Put them onto the battlefield under my control. We're also running Finale of Eternity, which is X black, black for a sorcery. Destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. If X is 10 or more, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. We have Haunting Voyage, which is 4 black, black for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Return up to 2 target creature types of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the spell was foretold, return all creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. Instead, its foretell cost is 5 black, black. See, we also have Living Death, which is 3 black, black for a sorcery, where you exchange all creatures in play with all creatures in graveyards. And then we have Rise of the Dark Realms, which is 7 black, black for a sorcery to put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. And yeah, that's kind of the basis of the deck. The rest of it is a lot of, demons that do a thing, mana rocks, and some utility instants, and a couple enchantments. So Moxfield put this at a 3. I agree with that sentiment and left it at a 3. Now, the next deck I want to take a look at is Sentinel Sarah Lions. And this is just Boros artifacts. So it's 3, a red and a white for a 4/4 human knight with haste. As long as an artifact enters the battlefield under your control this turn, creatures you control get +2/+2. And it has Battalion. Whenever she and at least 2 other creatures you control attack, she deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control to target player. So, according to Moxfield, this deck sits at the 2 bracket, but I don't agree with that. Because anytime I play it, this deck runs house. So I put it at a 3. So, yeah. The whole premise behind this deck is get artifact out, attack with team. So, as one might guess, while I do have 20 non-creature artifacts, of the 35 creatures I have, 28 of them are artifacts. So the big core of this deck is actually reanimation. And we do that with a number of things. First up, we kind of want to talk about our sacrifice outlets. So first up, we have Arcbound Ravager, 2 mana for a 0/0 artifact creature beast. You can sacrifice an artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on the Ravager, and it has modular 1, meaning it enters with a +1/+1 counter. So, yeah, this is a way they can sit on board that just says, hey, I need to sacrifice an artifact real fast, and I can do that. Now, if we look into our non-creature artifacts, we find where the bulk of this is, with Altar of Dementia, which is a 2-mana artifact to sack a creature, and then target player puts a number of artifact cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. We have Ashnod's Altar, which is a 3-mana artifact, sacrifice a creature, add 2 colorless to your mana pool. And we have Quark Clan Ironworks, which is 4 mana for an artifact that says sacrifice an artifact, add 2 colorless to your mana pool. That's kind of the core of it. Part of the reason we're doing that is because then we also want to, get that stuff back out of the graveyard. And we do that with things like Derevi Scrap Savant, which kind of pulls double duty here. 3 in a red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. +2. Discard up to 2 cards, and then draw that many cards. His -2. Sacrifice an artifact. If you do, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then -10, you get an emblem with whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. And within that number is kind of where we find the reanimators that we're going to be running. The first one up is Junk Diver, which is 3 mana for an artifact creature bird, 1/1, flying. When it dies, return another target card from your graveyard to your hand. Next up, we have the Mirror Retriever, which is 2 mana for artifact creature Mirror, 1/1. When it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So, those two, and the third one, Workshop Assistant, which is a 3 mana for a 1/2 construct. When it dies, return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Is not restricted in any way by, mana cost. Oh, and I forgot the Sanctum Gargoyle. 3 and a white for a 2/3 gargoyle with flying. When it enters the battlefield, return artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Then there's Scrap Trawler. So Scrap Trawler is its own beast. 3 mana for a 3/2 construct. Whenever Scrap Trawler, or another artifact you control, is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with a lesser converted mana cost. So, good times. One of the best uses for this is to sacrifice something and make a couple of mana, and say you have, Junk Diver in your bin and Mirror Retriever. So you sacrifice the Workshop Assistant to, we'll say, Quark Clan Ironworks. The Scrap Trawler trigger allows you to get back Mirror Retriever, and the Workshop Assistant trigger allows you to get back Junk Diver. Now, you still have to have the mana to cast them, and there are ways that I can do that if I string together a couple of things where I can make not infinite mana, but a whole lot of mana. And yeah. But yeah, so the deck is just trying to, put artifacts on the board, make them big, and swing. But anyway, I need to keep moving. We did demons. We did my Sentinel Artifacts deck. Now we're going to talk about my favorite mono-white deck. And that is Linden, the Steadfast Queen. Right. So, Linden is white, white, white. For a 3/3 human noble with vigilance, whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. And Moxfield, I believe, put it at a bracket 3, which I agreed with. The reason it sits at bracket 3 is because it does have a game changer in it. It is running Drannith Magistrate. Now, is Drannith Magistrate in there for any nefarious reasons? No. It's in there because it's a cheap 1/3 white creature that throws a little disruption in. So it's 1 and a white for a 1/3 human wizard. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. That's it. So what's the real trick with this deck? Technically, there is a 2-card combo in the deck. That is Heliod the Sun-Crowned, which is a 2 and a white for a 5/5 god, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, he isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And you can pay 1 and a white to give another creature lifelink until end of turn. The combo with this is Walking Ballista, which is XX for a 0/0 construct. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 4 to put a counter on it. But you can remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista to have it deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So, say on turn whatever, you cast Heliod the Sun-Crowned. You just, attack with Linden and a bunch of other white creatures. You gain a bunch of life, and Linden triggers 1 per creature, which means Heliod gets to trigger and put counters on things for as many creatures as you have attacking. And then let's say the next turn you play the Walking Ballista. So you need 6 mana, 4 to cast Walking Ballista with 2 counters on it, and then a 1 and a white to give it the lifelink. As soon as you do that, you remove a counter, it does the damage, you put a counter back on it because you gained a life. So that, I do believe, is the only 2-card, hard 2-card combo in the deck. The premise of Linden is it's the hyper-aggressive mono-white deck. Sometimes I refer to it as my 30-land special, because it only runs 30 lands. But that's because if you look at the mana curve of the deck, I really only need 3 mana for the deck to run optimally. Yes, I do have, 4 drops, 5 drops, a single 6 drop, and 3 7 drops. And yes, they are game enders, but for the most part, we're trying to do a lot of our work in the early turns. There's one other creature I want to talk on real quick before we get into the expensive things and, how they work with the deck. There it is. The real way this deck wins is by flooding the board and then putting a ton of +1/+1 counters on creatures. And we do that with Archangel of Thune. 3 white white for a 3/4 flying angel with lifelink, and whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So, here's the scenario. Say we have 6 creatures, with 1 being Archangel, 1 being Linden. We attack with 6 white creatures. Linden triggers for each white creature attacking, so herself included. That is gaining 6 life 1 at a time. Archangel of Thune sees 6 life gains and says, hey, you gained life. Hey, you gained life. Hey, you gained life. So for every one of those, she puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So a lot of times the way this works is Archangel will come down on a turn when I already have 5 or 6 creatures in play, and then I just make them hit super hard. But yeah. The expensive stuff. The first one, Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. 5 white for a 4/7 Praetor with Vigilance. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Other creatures you don't control get -2, -2. It's like a mini board wipe, and I make my creatures bigger than yours. Next up we have El Sun Titan, which is 4 white for a 6/6 giant with Vigilance. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is like 90% of them. And then the other expensive card we really have here is Akroma's Memorial, which is 7 mana for a legendary artifact. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. So, well, not a game ender by itself, like Elesh Norn is. You play this, and then you go, hey, I swing everything at you. Oh, you are no longer alive. Pass. So, yeah. And again, I got one more I want to go over, so I can't really spend time going over why Linden is like my favorite. That brings us to our last deck, which is Wiznerds, run by Adeliz the Cinderwind. 1, a blue and a red, for a 2/2 human wizard with flying and haste. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, wizards you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Moxfield put this at a 4, and I agree with that, because this is the deck I pull out when I go, hey, let's make this a quick game. I'm going to try and kill 1 or 2 of you as fast as possible. So the real trick here is what they consider making it bracket for is that it has game changers past 3. So it's running Mystical Tutor, Jessica's Will, Force of Will, Fierce Companion, Fierce Guardianship, and Cyclonic Rift. That's not necessarily the reason I think it sits at a 4. No, I'm more in the... This is meant for Adeliz to take out one person with commander damage, while some of the other creatures in the deck chip away at other people. So, in this deck, I kind of have Adeliz as like the general. So, when I look at the other creatures in the deck, I kind of see some of them as like the lieutenants, you know, and then I see others as, you know, something under those. So, I'd say 3 that are kind of like the lieutenants of this deck are Belmore Battlemage Captain, which is blue and a red for a 1/3 bird wizard with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample till end of turn. The next one is Varen, Voice of Duality, which is 1, a blue and a red for a 2/2 Efreet wizard. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Varen, Voice of Duality gets +1/+1 till end of turn. And if you casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. The third one is Najal the Stormrunner, which is 2 blue and a red. For a 5/4 Efreet wizard, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. And whenever Najal the Stormrunner attacks, you can pay 2. If you do, when you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it, you may choose new targets for the copy. So, yeah. all things that are kind of trying to do the same thing as Adelies. The reason I keep Adelies at the helm is she's not actually as scary as Balmor or Veyron. And she kind of encourages you to go a little wide. Now, to be completely honest, this deck only runs 12 creatures. And the rest of them kind of fit into the homogenous zone of you all do a thing. So I don't really want to go over all of them, but I do want to touch on one. That is the Docent of Perfection, which is 3 blue for a 5/4 insect horror with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you make a 1/1 human wizard. It's blue. And then if you control 3 or more wizards, you transform the Docent into Final Iteration, which is a 6/5 Eldrazi insect with flying, and wizards you control get +2/+1 and flying. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. So, yeah. Still very good, but not, upper echelon of what's going to win me the game. It does help later on, though. The real trick with this deck is how many 1-mana things can I do to pump my team and ultimately Adelies by 7 or 8 power. So the 12 sorcerers I have, half of them are just quick ways to draw cards and pump up my team. The one I want to touch on is Assault Strobe. Single red for sorcery. Target creature gains double strike till end of turn. That's about as good as that's going to get. Followed by, Slip Through Space, which is a single blue for a sorcery. It has Devoid, so it's technically colorless. But target creature can't be blocked this turn, draw a card. And we love cantripping. We love drawing cards off what we're doing. So when you get into the instance that this deck gets kind of wonky, including cards that probably should be game changers that aren't. Namely, I'm talking about Deflecting Swat, which is 2 in a red for an instant. If you control your commander, you can cast without paying its mana cost. Choose new targets for target spell or ability. Mana Drain, which is blue for an instant counter a spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, you add an amount of colorless to your mana pool equal to the spell's converted mana cost. And the big one here is Pact of Negation. It's 0 for an instant counter target spell. At the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 3 blue. If you don't, you'll lose the game. Which is one of my favorite ways to go out of the game on my own terms. But that said, I really think there's more cards that need to be in the Game Changers list, just because there's a lot of powerful Magic cards. But we're here to talk about what we do with Adelies. So all of the counterspells in this deck are meant to protect our commander. That's it. They are there to keep her safe. And then everything else we're doing is, removing a thing, drawing cards. Until we get to, things like Unleash Fury, which is 1 in a red for an instant, double the power of target creature till end of turn. This is one of those, hey, we got Adelies up to 12 power. If we just double her power, she takes somebody out in one hit kind of cards. And to piggyback off that, we also have Temur Battle Rage, which is 1 in a red for an instant. Target creature gains double strike till end of turn. It also has Ferocious. Creature also gains trample till end of turn if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which is relatively easy to do in this deck. Yeah. And then, we have some utility artifacts. The only one we really care about here is Isochron Scepter, because we can put, an Unleash Fury under an Isochron Scepter. But yeah, I think I've rambled on enough. Moxfield put this at a 4. I do not disagree with it, but it's more because of the mentality of when I'm playing this, I am trying to win. But enough of that. I've talked enough. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.